22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it. 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 And are not afraid to say it.
And are not afraid to say it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You are tuned into Black Westchester Presents the People Before Politics radio show. I am your host, AJ Woodson. It's Women's Month. Today we are celebrating women. It's Women's History Month, but we're celebrating women today. I have a special guest co-host for the day. Solange, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Welcome back. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the show. Our first segment, we're going to talk to Samami Mccauley of the Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus. And I think they honored several members, and she's going to introduce them and tell them why they were honored, and we're going to give them their flowers as well. And then
I'm really excited about this.
You and I are just going to continue the conversation, talk about, women that we feel need to get their flowers and all those good things. But welcome to the show, Samami. How are you?
Welcome. Thank you for having me. Can you hear me?
We can. Absolutely. How are you?
Yes. How are you
today?
I'm
so excited to be on the show today. Can you hear me better now?
I hear the same.
Pretty much the same.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
You sound good though. You said you're good. You're good. So you are the countywide
president of the Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus.
Yes.
And as always, I'm so happy you invited me time and time again on your show. Much respect to you. Hi, Solange, your co-host. Good to see you on the show today.
Good to see you too. I'm so excited that we get to honor your nominees.
Yes. So the Black Dems of Westchester honored 3 of our members at their March monthly meeting in significance and to pay homage to Women's History Month.
Okay, and who are your guests here today?
Our guests here today are Gia Clark from the Yonkers chapter. Gia Clark is a gift, a treasure, and a homegrown girl from Yonkers, New York. And she is the daughter of the first Black business owner in the great city of Yonkers.
Wow.
She works as an accountant for Levitt First, an insurance powerhouse in Tarrytown. And she's our fundraising chair for the Yonkers chapter of the Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus. Let me introduce my friend of 20 years and someone who doesn't like attention, but stays in the background and does the work without asking for any accolades. So Gia Clark, we celebrate you today.
Thank you so much. I am so honored. I thank you. Everything that you said, it falls true to my heart. I want to say that my father is one of the innovators. There were many Black businesses that were never honored or were never realized in Westchester County alone, even as opposed to Yonkers. So there are many, but I'm very blessed to have been in. My father was one of those innovators. He had a commercial refrigeration company called Frigid Igloo. He was general manager and became owner. Bought it from when they were leaving and they were going to retire and sell the business. He was able to buy it, and he struggled, but he did what he had to do. I want to also say that any award, anything like this, comes on the backs of all of our ancestors, our family, our community. I did not do this, all that I do, alone. I feel like every time I do anything like get accolades like this, I have to look behind me, in front of me, the side of me, and thank all my ancestors who made me where I am right now today. So everybody out there, everyone who's struggling, everybody who's out there trying to make a difference, do not give up. That's the whole idea. Get involved with organizations like this, radio shows like this, community, because together we are unstoppable. And that's what I got from my father. We lived in Colonial Heights. I don't know if everybody remembers in the 70s, a house being set on fire because they were in Colonial Heights on Underhill Street. That was my father's house. And my father refused to leave Yonkers and take his family from Yonkers. He refused because he said he was not going to not live where he wanted to not live, especially he was in World War II, 5 major battles and the Purple Heart. He was not going to not stay where he worked and struggled and stuck up for this country and not believe that he can't live anywhere he wanted to in the United States of America. So don't give up. Get involved with these groups, with these organizations, because together, that's what I find out. Together, we will succeed. We'll make a change and a difference. It's just one person at a time, getting together and raising the collective conscissness of our community.
Yeah,
absolutely.
go ahead, AJ. Sorry.
Samami, you got 2 more women to bring in, and then we're gonna ask everybody questions.
Okay.
Absolutely. So it's my honor to introduce Felicia Cummings. Felicia Cummings is from our Peekskill chapter. She was an elementary school teacher for many years, but I'm bringing her on because of all she does for her community. She, along with 4 other mothers, have a weekly community program sharing the journey of mothers navigating autism. I bring you Felicia Grant Cummings, who started with the Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus with her mother right out of high school. Felicia, I honor you today.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. What an honor and what a privilege to be on this forum today. I was surprised and I am excited to share whatever I can share with you all. As a lifetime educator, legacy educator, because my parents were both educators and my grandmother on my father's side was an educator. It has been my life's work to teach, to train, and to educate not only young people, but also people at large. Through the Caucus, I've taught, and trained people around the aspect of voting and policy reform and election, the whole political process, the whole game. But currently, I'm working with 4 other mothers who are from a diverse background. We all are women of color and women from just diverse backgrounds who all have children on the spectrum. And we decided to come together to share our journeys. It's not from a clinical standpoint. It's really from just mother to mother. And we have found that it's been very effective. We share our platform on our local cable channel. We also have a YouTube channel and Instagram and Facebook. So we have been gearing up the conversations geared on what people ask us what topics come up in our own lives to address and speak about. And as the previous speaker before me was talking about standing on the shoulders, if we don't move forward with teaching one another, who will? And it's so important that I think we give a face to things that people maybe are curious about, or they may not have enough information. And I know that in terms of autism, there weren't that many families that I knew when my daughter was first diagnosed, to families of color that I could relate to, or, bounce ideas off of, or even to just, get into discussions with. So that's just a little bit about me. And, I look forward to having, further discussions as we move along. I don't want to take up the whole time in this little intro beginning part. Thank you.
And Samami, introduce your, who else you brought? Who else did
I
you
have
bring
two
with
more
us?
people. I would like to introduce.
Well, only one so far is here.
Yes, I would like to introduce Lisa Burton from our New Rochelle chapter. Lisa Burton is our redistricting chair. But prior to that, she retired from a world-famous New York City law firm as the practice manager. She is currently a legislative aide to Damon Mayer. When anyone wants to talk redistricting, who do they call? Lisa Burton. Let me honor you today, Lisa Burton, for being the champion of all of the sisters and people of color in Westchester County when we talk about redistricting. Lisa, you got the mic.
Okay. Thank you so much, Saboni. And hi, AJ. Hello, Solange. And Felicia and Gia. I'm so happy to be on this show, and I'm happy to be in Saboni world, because when you're in Saboni world, everything that you do gets lifted up. Everything that you do is appreciated. Everything that you do has a wider platform than you could ever imagine. And that is where I'm at right now. I just want to briefly talk about redistricting, because the impact of the census and redistricting is hitting us hard in Westchester. For the lack of under 100 people who did not complete the census, New York lost a congressional district.
Right.
And then losing, and not 100, less than 100 people in Westchester, less than 100 people in the entire state. So, there was an outreach for the census, and people have different ways of thinking about it, but I think we need to talk every year until the next census about how we lost a congressional seat and what impact that had in Westchester. So in Westchester, we had 2 Black congressional congressmen in this last year, with Congressman Bowman and Congressman Mondaire Jones. And now, because we lost the seat, Westchester is being divided. My part of New Rochelle, Pelham, Larchmont, Mamaroneck, Rye, that whole Sound Shore area, is now in Congressional District 3, which encompasses Westchester, Queens, the Bronx, Suffolk, and Nassau County. We go from our municipal housing, which is now in this new Congressional District 3, goes from being in a congressional district where Black people were 30% of the voting age population to 3%. So, things have impact, and there's a long game and there's a short game. The minute the new maps were drawn and voted on, there were 4 people who jumped into this race for this new Congressional District 3. They had their money, they had their backers, they had all that ready, and yet none of them are Black. So we need to have a broader understanding of how the census ties into the congressional district, how congressional districts get changed, and how we need to be ready to and resilient to make a move with that change. Because 3% sounds de minimis, and it is, but there are populations, the ethnically Jewish people in the United States are only 3% of the population, and yet they have a major impact. Native Americans are also about 3% of the voting population in the United States, and their impact is considerably different. So we just need to decide in Congressional District 3 what kind of impact we are going to have. And so that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think I saw you at the redistricting hearing at
Yes.
was that Pace University. I think there was very few of us there. It was
Yes.
like a cheap chocolate chip. You know, it was just like every now, oh, there's a black person. Oh, there's a black person. Oh, there's a chip. Oh, there's a chip. And I did see, you know, several of you, a handful of y'all from New Rochelle. I unfortunately didn't see many from Mount Vernon. I saw a lot of people from the Bronx, but most of them did not look like us. You know what I'm saying? And it was a shame because we did the show on it, we advertised on it, we spoke on it. It's a shame. Same thing with the census. It's, you know, we try to educate people what that means, and some people don't get it until after it's too late, unfortunately. So I applaud you with the work you were doing. Solange, I wanted to turn the mic to you, see if you wanted to ask if you had questions for any of the ladies on here.
Oh my goodness! First of
can
all,
I introduce my last guest today, please?
They're not here.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying. That's so far there is no one else in the waiting room.
Okay.
So I can see why all these three amazing women were nominated, and I'm so excited to be able to celebrate all three. I'm sitting here in awe. Gia, and Felicia and Lisa, you all raised the issue of standing on the shoulders of women that came before us. And I feel that is so critical, but I also feel that by celebrating you and elevating our queens today, we really set a foundation for all our young girls that are looking up to you, all of them that will see you in, you know, articles written about you and learn more about you and see you out in the community. It's really important because if you don't grow up seeing people, you know, that can do some of the things that you aspire to do, it makes it all the much more harder for you to envision yourself being able to do it. So I'll first I'm going to give a shout out to Lisa because she's my neighbor in New Rochelle and I'm in Pelham. And Felicia, I sat and listened to you and I tried to think of if I ever had a Black teacher, a woman teacher growing up. And I'm hard pressed to think of one when I was throughout full, you know, kindergarten, middle school or high school. It's really hard for me. I don't even think I had one in college. It's really hard for me to think that. So I admire the work that you do. And Gia, I mean, I'm so just amazed by all the things that you do. And I got that fear when you talked about your house burning down, you know, despite all the things that we go through, you know, school and doing well and you know, all the adversity to get into places and do things. And then, you know, our homes are at risk. Our families are at risk. We're targeted for our successes. And to overcome that adversity, all I could think about was Black Wall Street in Oklahoma. And just how many other businesses, our parents and our grandparents suffered as a result. When my parents went to buy their house, they were told they couldn't buy in the neighborhood that they wanted to buy because there was redlining going on at that time. So anyways, I'll start with Lisa and redistricting. And as an attorney, I live in fear of case managers because I'm completely disorganized. But what could we tell people in our communities to help them to better understand? Telling people that it's important, it doesn't resonate. I was telling my team the other night, it's really important that you go to bed early so that you rest your body so that you're good for the next day. It went way over his head. Like it did not resonate with him. So what can we tell our young people and our voters and, you know, our residents that would help them to understand how critically important it is, not only for them to be civically active and participate in our system, but also to fill out the census and to care about redistricting? Because, I'm losing my great congressman, who I've already forged a relationship. And when we have a problem, I tell him, we pick up the phone, he answers. So I'm like, every candidate that I meet for our new congressional district, listen, when I call, you better answer the phone. So, but now I have to go through and, train somebody else. So what can you tell people to get them to be motivated to participate? And maybe this is a question for all three of four of our guests and 3 of our nominees.
Right. Well, the work of activists and the work of organizers is to speak the language to the people that you're trying to reach. So it's not just one thing, although I did see a sign earlier today that said, when truth is with kindness, the world can change. So, for young people, number one, our schools no longer teach civics. So civics is something that they have to learn from home. They have to know that there's a straight line between, if the garbage isn't picked up and you call City Hall and you say something has to be done and nothing's done, that you call somebody who you elect and something gets done. Civics is going to city council meetings and understanding what the budget is. Civics is voting in each and every election, including school board elections. And your young people will see the importance of it from your activities, because it's not what you say, it's what you do, right? And, for the broader community, make no mistake, a political choice of cynicism is the way in which things get done with no input from the public. So if everyone's going to be cynical, it's all the same, right wing, left wing, it's the same bird, I'm not going to be part of this situation. Well, you know what? From your taxes to, how you can park on your street, to your garbage pickup, to whether you get Wi-Fi and high-speed internet access, to how your children are taught, that is all determined by people who are elected. And if you stay home and opt out, all you're doing is silencing yourself and becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. So again, our job as organizers, our job as leaders in our community is to, number one, walk the walk before you talk the talk, and then meet people where they are and make them understand, if the grocery store is closing and this is going to impact how you feed your family, that was a political choice. And therefore you have to be part of the political process and talk to your neighbors and organize and get something done. And then it just keeps moving out from there. Did that answer your question?
It does. Although I feel like by the time the grocery store closes, it's too late and the census is over. And so we have another 8 years, I guess, to educate people, but the damage has already been done.
You cannot come 3 weeks before the census is going around to say, oh, it's important. Because they've already heard all of the crazy talk. Oh, don't do it. It doesn't really matter, blah, blah, blah. No, you should, it should be, Congressman Bowman is no longer a congressman because 78 people didn't fill out the census. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
And make that part of every conversation in every place and space.
And hope they remember it in 8 years.
Well, if they only hear that, when they see me, I want everyone to say, oh gosh, she's going to start talking about that again.
That's funny because I do have one of those topics that I'm always talking about. Felicia, I want to ask you a question about your daughter and educating, maybe the mom who feels isolated or who doesn't know there are different services or benefits or even a community for her. How does she find you? And what words of inspiration do you have to give to any of the moms that might be listening today that see themselves in the work that you're doing?
I think first off, I would say to any mother is trust your instincts. Because I think sometimes we listen too much to what other people say about our children before we actually pay attention to our own children. I'll say that first. And once you feel or detect, or if you're not even sure, I encourage anyone to just go out and look for the information. First, speak to your pediatrician and let your pediatrician know, hey, I see something that seems a little different. You may have had a child before, or this may be your first child. And so your experiences may be different as a mother, but if you raise it to a professional, then they can help to guide you. My daughter had some medical issues early on. And so I was fortunate that we had a lot of intervention early and medical professionals in her life early to guide her, or actually first guide me to pay attention more and to monitor her. Because of the medical issues that she had, she was carefully monitored. And so there was, an expectation to just anything to look at and see if there's just a delay. And I was really fortunate that I had the resources that I was pointed to, like the different agencies in the county, but Westchester Institute for Human Development and early intervention programs that are available and free to the public. And a lot of people don't know that. They can even go to the school district before their child is of school age and ask questions. And you can have your child evaluated. And I think, I really would like to stop any stigma that people have about evaluating your child. There are things that go on organically within someone, and it doesn't hurt to just have it looked at. And I think that a lot of us are so worried about a child having a label, but we're missing that the child's not getting the support that they need. So I've been so much afraid of a label as I was of my child not being able to just be the best that they can be. I wasn't measuring them against or her against anybody else, but her to be her best. So I would encourage that all parents to just research first. Well, I'm sorry. First, contact a professional. Go to your pediatrician and try to get some advice. And if you don't feel like you're getting advice, then begin to research and look for agencies. Look for our group is a mom. We're right on Facebook, Moms Navigating Autism. And we're all navigating it at different levels. All of our children have different, are on different areas of the spectrum. Some of the children are higher functioning. Some of them are a little bit lower functioning. Some are very verbal and some don't speak at all. But I just think that you have to want the best for your child, and you have to want information and be hungry about it and not sit back, and also not be afraid to ask. Did I answer your question?
You did, and you just reminded me the number of times that I've talked to moms that are worried about the school testing and going for an IEP or a 504 plan. And I continually, advise moms, like, it's really important that you at least understand what your child needs and what the school district is required to provide. And that's the basis of getting those type of educational services, even early intervention. So if your child is before school age, but could benefit or needs some type of, speech therapy, physical therapy, other educational therapeutics to help them to enter into the school system, that's where you go to get them. And I'll tell you, like, even myself, when I had to have my child tested, like, even I had some trepidation about it. And I needed another mom to say, girl, are you crazy? Go get your kid tested so that you can get the services that they need. And even through, so this is well before that, before you could get easily tested. When I was younger, it was harder. But I benefited when I went to sit for my bar, because I did have my history of accommodations that had been provided to me. This is way back in the 80s, but had been provided to me so that the bar was able to see and to make those accommodations too. And there's a myth that somehow if you have a higher functioning child that receives a benefit, that somehow they are enhanced in their performance, and that's the myth. What the accommodation does is level the playing field.
That's
so
right.
That they're taking the test or performing in the class at the same level and with the same benefits as everyone else in the class. And that's what that does. So anyways, I'll get off my high horse. Gia, I have to ask you about your father, your parents' business. So in air conditioning, and also say one thing, which is you're an accountant. Is that right?
Well, I just wanted to get that clear. My title for the last 30 years has been senior staff accountant, but I'm not a CPA. So I want to make that clear. It's a status and a title that was given to me as a bookkeeper. So I do not have a CPA. I'm not a CPA. I want to be very clear with that.
No,
and I also, I'm sorry.
Bookkeepers are so critical, because I'm going to tell you, at the end of the day, the person going to jail, if the numbers are cooked,
it's the bookkeeper.
So we're not trying to go down that path.
I work with a lot of CPA and certified accountants. And I want to also correct that my house did not burn down, but it was set on fire. And it was late at night, and none of my 4 sisters, my mother or my father were hurt, but we had damage to our house. And that was in Yonkers. And that was in like 1972, which, 1972, you would think that's the 70s. That's not how it should be. And I have to say to Felicia, I don't remember having any Black teacher, just like Solange said, growing up. I don't even remember in grade school, high school. I don't remember. I went to Boston University. I think I had a Black professor, one, but that's it. I had nobody that looked like me that was teaching, or that was, other than my father, who I looked up to, and my mother, and my sisters and my close-knit family. I had nobody of like authority to look up to that was teaching me. So I just want to bring that up. That's something that's changed now, which should make a difference, I think. I believe. I have to believe.
I completely agree with that too. But so what ended up happening with your father's business?
My father's business was a commercial refrigeration business. That's where they took a piece of metal and they made a refrigeration case commercial. And they were on Nepperham Avenue for like 30 years. And he ended up selling the business, became, still part of the business. And then they moved to the Bronx. The actual business moved to the Bronx. So, he had retired by then, and still lived in Yonkers, and until he became very ill. He had colon cancer, and he passed away. But the legacy of what he did, and one thing I liked and loved about my father is that he understood that our young people were our future. So he had a lot of apprentices come in, and young, not young women, young men, but that's how it was in the 70s and the 60s, but come in and apprentice. I mean, look to see how to do this, how to be an entrepreneur, how to work in business. And he totally believed and understood that if children saw potential out there, they would want to strive for more. They would not want to, no matter what their circumstances were, that they would strive for more. So I believe that. I do a lot of fundraisers. I did one for YTI, who's in Yonkers, a lot of different fundraisers to help young people raise money to take and benefit a cause that they're part of. So I totally believe in that. I believe that, the more that we have like this, and even like I understand too, when you say you asked your son and you said about getting more sleep, and he was like looking at you like you had 3 eyes while you said it. That's how most teenagers and how most kids do. But you keep that up and keep on talking to them, something sticks. it's there. They are going to follow up and understand. So I think we get more young people involved on another level, a level like this, starting, not just, like by the time they're a senior and they're going to go to college, it's going to be harder for them to get more stuff to understand that they're part of a community. It's not just them. And that's why I love the groups that we're in, any groups that are going to help women. I totally believe in, but just as much, any groups that are going to help our young boys is going to be something that's going to be help our community on the whole. Because if we're not out there showing them what to do, someone else will.
That's
and
right.
They will to something else, and that may not be where their future is. And what that does is it creates a longer path for them to get to where they were meant to be in this, whatever their purpose was, whatever their God-given purpose. It just takes longer to get there. And some of them don't even make it there. So,
I have to ask each one of you, women, what Black woman inspired you or offered you some invaluable tool or gift in your life? And let's honor her. Who wants to go first?
I'll go since I just spoke. I'm gonna, if you don't mind. Okay, I'm gonna say my mother, and I'm going to say my mother because she was the first person that I saw that she was so nurturing. She was so wanting my sisters and I to know that no matter what other people say, you develop yourself, understand that you have worth and that you are worthy. That was the first person, no matter what, when you went to school, what was happening in school, what was happening outside, she gave me my feeling of saying, you have worth, you are worthy, and God made you, and God made you with greatness inside of you. She used to say that all the time. And to me, that's more than anything else. I always remember that.
Saboni?
For me, it would definitely be my maternal grandmother, my mother's mother. My grandmother was her husband died when my mother was 4, and she raised 13 children by herself. And when I saw that growing up, how she would make homemade herbs. She was an herbalist in Nigeria, and she would make herbs and sell them out of her house. And she used that money to raise 13 children. That's a miracle in my eyes. I only have one child, and sometimes I'm struggling. But she had 13. So to raise 13 children and have all of them graduate from college, to me, is phenomenal. So she is my phenomenal woman.
Lisa?
I couldn't begin to just say one person. I mean, my mother was everything. She, not only was she the wind beneath my wings, she's the one who gave me the wings, pointed me in the right direction, and cheered me on the whole way. But I had women at work who mentored me and looked after me when I was a new supervisor, and I have women in various organizations. I mean, AJ, your mother, Pat, she was so inspiring. There are so many wonderful Black women. It's almost unfair to say who, to name one, because they all make such a difference. And especially when you occupy spaces where you're the only one, when you're the only Black woman, which was my experience in the workplace, it made all the difference to have sisters and moms and aunts wrap their arms around me in ways that always uplifted me and never made me feel small. So I'm definitely cheating on the answer. I think there's too many to name. Just one.
Wait,
Having an abundance of women.
Let me interrupt real quick. So, Lisa, did I know that you knew my mom? You knew my mom?
Yeah, your mom was with the Zonta Club of New Rochelle.
Yes.
Yes. And I met you in the Bronx many, many, many years ago. Yes.
Okay. I just want to say shout out to the Zonda Club. My mother passed in 2014. For many that don't know, I came back from Georgia to take care of her. She had stage 4 cancer. And David approached me about doing Black Westchester, and I stayed, blah, blah, blah. So after my mom passed, you know how you always say, you know, you would wish that you could hear from your mother one more time? The Zonta Club, they reached out to my sister. Y'all had a radio show on WVOX.
Yeah.
And my mom did a segment doing what she does, telling people how to save their houses when they're in foreclosure and the whole nine. And she sent us the recording.
Yeah.
And I held on to that recording for like 3-4 years. And then I shared it with someone else who does that kind of stuff. And they were like, this information is still valuable. And I eventually shared it on Black Westchester so that it can continue to help people. But, you know, that's very close to my heart. So when you said that, I was like, oh, did I know that you Yeah. So who didn't answer yet? Felicia
did not answer. So we're coming to Felicia.
Okay. Well, you know, it's interesting. I think that this panel was meant to come together in the way that we are. I first was going to say my mother, and then Gia stole that from me, and I was like, ugh, okay. And then as we kept going along, I'm going to also hedge between what also Lisa said, and let this be my statement is this. First, my mother was my first example as a strong Black woman I'm an only child, and she was raising me with my dad. And my parents bought a home. We used to live in Ossining, and they bought a home in Yorktown. And being
Max, get the dog, please.
A person, as you were saying, AJ, about the chips. You know, very few chips in the chocolate chip cookie. I definitely experienced that growing up in Lakeland School District. And, you know, coming from Ossining, which had more people of color, and then moving to Yorktown, I did feel a little bit isolated. And, but I was thankful that I had a mother who said, we live here, but we are going to worship in a community that is a community of color, in a church that is, you know, from her background, Baptist. And so I can say that I had women from my church, I had women from the Caucus, and I had women from my mother's sorority, which is currently my sorority also now, Delta Sigma Theta sorority, Incorporated. To raise me. They were my village. They were my village. The women in my church pushed me along to stand up and do scripture, to do prayers, to sing in the choir, to be a part of youth groups. The women in the Caucus pushed me along. Hey, I was at meetings when I was not even old enough to join. I was tagging along and learning all the names of the congressmen and the senators, and being part of campaigns like Carl McCall's campaign way back when, that, you know, those women helped to pull me along. And also the women of the sorority, because these were the women that surrounded my mother's circle, and they became my village. And they were the women who encouraged me, they supported me, they scolded me if I needed to be scolded. They corrected me, but it was all with love. It was all with love. As we know, this is what we do in our community. But, you know, they also, without words, inspired me, because I was able to look at their paths and see what direction they traveled. I could go and watch them and see how they carried themselves, their demeanors, you know, in their professions and outside of their professions. And so, you know, it's been a lifelong journey to be mentored and loved by the village. So I'll say my mother was my first, but the women of my village really helped to shape me, mold me, and inspire me.
I'm going to take a little creative license. It's all Lisa's fault. So When I found out my mother had stage 4 cancer, my mother always said, "Give me my flowers while I'm alive," which I take forward in like even having this show. That's what this show is about. Me giving all of you your flowers. So what I did is I had wrote her a poem and sent her some flowers, literally, while when she first got to the hospital. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to share my poem about my mother real quick with all of you. And I'm going to pay tribute to my mom, who was a wonderful woman in Westchester. You raised me to be a good dude. Lord knows I love you like cooked food. I thank God for your love so unconditional, even when I didn't do what you thought I should. Dear Mama, the only one who never gave up on me, because in me, greatness you could always see. Even when the world wrote me off and I couldn't see it because things came so easily. As I rewind my mind, I see every time I went off track, like the prodigal son, you were there to pray, God, lead me back. Even when you knew I was wrong, you gave me the space to do it my way. Didn't rub it in when I failed, but introduced me to Yahweh. Introduced me to He you said was the only one greater than me, and encouraged me to always reach for the stars. Mama always saw past my flaws, always saw past my scars. Dear Mama, I will always love you. You're my favorite girl. Dear Mama, I will always love you. My first example of love in this world. And even if God bless me with another wife, in my heart, there will always be a space where only you can reside. No one will ever be able to take your place. You believed even when I didn't believe. There was nothing your son could not achieve. If I applied myself and used my God-given gifts, seeing me waste my talents at times, I know gave you fits. Dear Mommy, you never stopped praying, never gave up on me. I see clearly now how God showed his love for me. Through all the years, even when I caused you tears, through you, God showed he loved me unconditionally. You bred in me the skills to always survive. This is my way of giving you your flowers while you're still alive. I used to resent it when it seemed nothing I did was good enough for you. But realize now that you were pushing me and equipping me in times of trouble to get through. Dear Mama, I will always love you. You're my favorite girl. Love you more than all the words and all the books and all the world. And even though this concludes the poem and the words come to an end, it only means my writing is done. But I will never be done loving you, Mama. Love your only son. Dear Mama, I will always love you. So that's my poem for my mom, Patricia L. Henderson. I like to give her flowers. I was very happy that I was able to give her this, read this to her. I sent it to her, and then I was able to read it to her for Mother's Day. And that's what I ended up reading at her funeral. And usually people say these things at your funeral, but I was able to give her this. So I just got a little emotional real quick. Y'all got to excuse me, but
no excuse needed.
And Lisa's fault for bringing up my mom and making me think about it. So I want to say again, my mother inspired this, what I've been doing like last year for Women's Month, instead of Women's History Month, showing all the women in history and what they have done. I decided to make the whole issue celebrating women now that we're doing things now. And I made a whole issue like that. And I've been on this whole giving people their flowers while they're alive. So this is my version of that. And, I definitely enticed Solange to come on as my guest co-host because, I felt like, the screen should be filled with as many women as possible this month. And I should be asking all the questions. But Solange, you asked a question and I'm not going to let you get away with not answering it yourself. Inspired you. So you get to answer the question as well. So.
Let me just say my mother, both of my parents, my mother and my father, and like all of you, when I didn't believe in myself, my parents, always saw that I could achieve some greatness. And I have to say, there have been so many times throughout my life where I just wanted to quit, or I felt down or out, or, it just wasn't working, or what am I doing wrong? I can't do this. And before my father passed, it was both of my parents. And then when my father passed, in, my mother really stepped up to really provide that support for me. But I always go back to, I had a hard childhood, a hard life. I didn't do particularly well in school, and we moved around a lot for a lot of different reasons. And then, I went to college. I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me, and I felt a little out of place, awkward. It wasn't really, I didn't have a big sister. I was the oldest. There's nobody that went before me. So it just made it harder, I think, for me. Law school, there were only 9 other Black people in my law school, in the entire school. And, that just made it even more difficult too. I graduated, passed the bar. I didn't know any Black women lawyers where I was. And, it really, well, my mother was probably my first. It really, as my career started to take off, the Black women that I met, along the way. And I was thinking about all the things that you were saying, all of you were saying, and I was thinking that, sometimes you don't know that you want to achieve something until you see that somebody else has achieved it, right? And then it's like, oh, hey, well, maybe I should do that, And I probably have 100 of those instances in my life where I didn't think that I could do something. It wasn't that I didn't think I could do something or I couldn't do something. It's that I didn't even know that that was possible. And so until I saw that, another Black woman was doing it or another woman was doing it, and then it's like, well, shoot, I want to do that too. So, I could name a few. Pat Ford, who was the first international executive vice president of the Service Employees International Union. She was my boss for many years. I love her tremendously. And she just opened so many doors and my eyes to what is possible and what could be done. And, that was amazing. My mom, of course, Rose, who's still here with me because throughout all my trials and tribulations, my mom has been here to support me and to help me. There are just so many other, Black women that I looked up to. Barbara Lee, I went to school, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, who's she's just amazing. She's from California, represents Berkeley. And I went to college with her son, which is how I came to first know her. She worked for Ron Dellums. And, she continues to inspire me to strive for peace and really think of what do we need as moms, as people, as here in our country to help us to move forward. So she continues to inspire me as well. I also want to say, I don't know if everybody's been following the news about what's happening in the Ukraine, but 2 things. One, I saw all these women, Black African women doctors, so smart, really smart women in Ukraine trying to get out, right? And I'm looking at this picture. I was listening to their struggles to get back to their home countries, right? But I'm looking at all these amazing Black women doctors getting out of that country, and I was like, holy mackerel, look at this! Like, this is like amazing. And I don't know if any of you have had a Black doctor, but I had a Black female doctor, Dr. Michelle, who hopefully she'll watch your show. I'm gonna send this to her. But all of a sudden, the things that were important to me, like she just got it, right? Like she just knew, like, well, how are you feeling here? Like, oh yeah, that's important. Have you got your mammogram, right? Like, well, why haven't you, right? Like she understood me. And I loved having a Black woman doctor as my primary care physician. I was sad when I moved away because she was so amazing. But anyways, back to those Ukrainian women. So shout out to them. But also, if you're watching the news, how many Black women, foreign correspondents do we see out there in the Ukraine or in Russia reporting. I'll go 0, right? And I thought, what a cool job that must be, right? I mean, like dangerous. I'd probably, I don't know, I'd be a mess. But that just seemed like I would want to, like, if we were there, if any of us were there right now, we'd be elevating and telling the stories of, like, I don't know if you guys were surprised like me, but of course there are Black people in Ukraine. It's a country and, there's a wide range of people in there. But when you thought about Ukraine in the beginning, you weren't thinking Black doctors, right? So I know I'm taking this conversation along a different path, but I do hope that there are young people looking at what to me looks like predominantly men reporting on this tragedy in the Ukraine, that maybe there'll be people that look like us that will be inspired to become foreign correspondents and war correspondents to tell our stories as Black women doctors. And I'm sure there are other educated people that we're trying to get out, but to tell our stories about people that look like us in these countries, because at first thought, we're not thinking about the people that look like us, right? It's just like, oh, Ukrainians, right? But of course, there are people that look like us in probably every, part of the globe. And so having people that look like us tell us on our news would make it so much more meaningful to me to really, and I already really feel for that country, but to understand and appreciate what it's like, and I saw one woman who was getting out and her makeup was done, right? She looked good, right? And I was thinking to myself, I'd be a mess, right? Trying to get out of this country. But it was important to her that if she was going to be on the news, that she looked good. And I was like, girl, I feel you. So that's my long answer to you.
On a local level, even this month, which is a little bit different, but not kind of the same. I thought it was important, like each week this month, I have a special, female co-host to help me, tell these stories and interview these women and pay tribute to these women. And I thought that was very important for the optics and for young girls to see that. And you're going to ask questions, and you've already asked questions that I probably never would have asked. You know what I'm saying? Because we see things through a different lens, and I think it's important. Like I told you on the phone before I got here, I said, I'm just giving you my platform, and you can do what you want to do, So like, I appreciate you. Holding it down. I wanted to ask Felicia, what grades do you teach?
Well, currently I'm not teaching. I've changed professions.
Okay. What grade did you teach?
My favorite, kindergarten and pre-K.
Oh, okay.
I love that age group.
Did you teach any older age groups?
I have. I've taught, my certification is K through 6. Right. So it's funny, I went from teaching kindergarten to the next year, I jumped to 6th grade, and right. It was quite a leap. It was quite a leap. But thank goodness I had done my student teaching in the upper grades. So that gave me some background, which was, very helpful. And it's funny that you say that, because just recently I saw a student that I had when I was pregnant with my son, who is now 19. And these kids were in 6th grade, and I was teaching in a local school here in Peekskill. And I call some of those young men who I didn't have a son yet, but they were my sons. And today when I see them, I say, oh, there goes one of my first sons. There goes one of my first sons. And I just want to say, AJ, your poem really touched my heart. As a mother of a son, I hope one day he can write something equally wonderful, to say. But I think any mother, you would be touched to hear the words that you put pen to paper to express your thoughts and your feelings about, what your mom meant to you, But my favorite grade is kindergarten.
It's going 8 years, and I barely made it through that poem. I'll be honest. I was like, I barely made it through. But I say that to say, I wanted to say, we went through the whole thing where we were beeping the horns and celebrating first responders and everything, and we did all of that. I don't think we highlighted enough of teachers. And I think everybody who has a child, when it was shut down and you had to teach your kid and your kid was home all day with you, had a newfound respect for what teachers do. And I say there must be a special place in heaven for all you good teachers out there that really hold it down. Because I know I gave some teachers some hard way to go when I got to a certain age, you know what I mean? So I was roughly a good kid, but I know I gave some teachers some a hard way to go. So I just wanted to so Women's Month. So I wanted to say real quick, we have a couple of women I want to highlight. I wanted to give them their flowers as well. Starting with Tajon Nelson, who is now the first Black female Westchester County Board of Election Commissioner. She won by unanimous vote. And I will say, I'm not so much at giving somebody vote for somebody because they're a man, because they're Black, because they're a woman, or whatever. But she has been there with Reggie. Shout out to the late great Reginald Lafayette, and she has held him down, and she is more than qualified. So I wanted to make sure I gave her flowers. I did invite her. I don't know if she'll come on before the show's on, but I did invite her. I also want to say for the first time in the county history, there are 2 women leading the Westchester Board of Legislators. We have Catherine Borgia, who's the chairperson, and Nancy Barr, who is the vice chair. That is the first time in the history of Westchester. In New York City, Mayor Eric Adams named Keechin Sewell, and I mess up her first name all the time, but she's the first Black female New York City police commissioner, first ever. And now we have a nominee, and has Solange on talking about that. We have a nominee, first Black woman nominee for Supreme Court. Want to shout out Vivian McKenzie, who is the first Black female mayor in Peekskill, and only the second Black female to lead a city in Westchester, second only to Mayor Sean Patterson Howard, who was the first in Mount Vernon, became the first Black female mayor in 2020, and the first elected female. There was another female, but she served because someone else had to fall out, so she served, but Sean is the first elected female and the first Black female mayor. So I wanted to give shout out to all of these women and locally, and I also wanted to give my condolences to the friends and family of Tracy Braxton, Tony Braxton's sister, who passed at 50 after a private battle with cancer. So I want to give my condolences to the friends and family of Tracy Braxton. But yeah, I just wanted to get that out. I wanted to make sure we gave the flowers to, and we had a show. Here's the story, and I want to thank all of you. So we had a show scheduled, and yesterday I was told that, by the person that I was going to have hosted, that they wasn't going to be able to do it. And then some of the guests wasn't going to be able to do it. And it was yesterday and the show was today. And I'm sitting here like, okay. So, Damon's busy, Lorraine's busy, Bob's busy. So I'm going to be on here for myself talking for 2 hours. I'm like, that's not going to work. And I didn't want to cancel the show. So I put on Facebook, I said, you know what? We always say we give the people what they want. So I put on the Facebook page, who would you like to see? What would you like to see us talk about? And this is how the show actually manifested. So Bonnie said she wanted to have the women that were honored, and Solange, and then I said, Solange, I'll make you the guest co-host. And basically this is how it happened. It was very organic. And I thank y'all for coming on, and I thank you all for
See, once again, Black women are bringing it home and making it happen, right?
Absolutely. And I feel like, we started this platform, and, you hear me mostly talking, sometimes Dr. Bob and sometimes Damon, but there have been a lot of, I want to give shout out to a lot of the women. Cynthia Turnquest Jones was the first co-host of this show and held us down for at least the first 100 episodes or so. And we've had special guest co-hosts. Tasha Young has been a special co-host for a couple of episodes. Tasha Diaz has actually been a guest co-host for a couple of episodes. Juanita Lewis has been a guest co-host for a couple of episodes. Priscilla Ichi has been a guest co-host, and there's been several others, and I just want to shout all of them down because, we did this. We didn't want it to be all. I never wanted this to be all my voice. Like I do 90% of the writing and stuff. I wanted to create this, and people say, "Oh, well, you're the voice of the people," and that might be true, but I didn't start this to become the voice of the people. I started this to give the people their own voice, to encourage them to have their own voice, and to hopefully have a platform so like y'all can come on here and y'all can talk about the issues that are important to y'all, and y'all can get the word out. Like, this is not for me. This is episode 331, but this is not for me. This is for all of us. And I would like everybody, especially those listening to, utilize this platform, whether it's the radio show, whether you want to write an editorial about something that you have a problem with in your community. Speak up. The importance of redistricting and or whatever you want to dispense some information. Utilize us, and we need more female voices speaking out there as well. So that's what this is. That's what we started this. We're going on our 8-year anniversary of the website in June, of this radio show in August, and the 5-year anniversary of the physical newspaper. So I also want to thank everybody who we did. I don't know if everybody's seen it. We had the Black to Business issue for last month, instead of having Black History Month and telling you again that Harriet Tubman freed some slaves and Martin Luther King had a dream. I figured, I could, and telling you all this other stuff, I felt like I could do so much more. So I highlighted and listed over 300 businesses that were Black owned in Westchester.
Won't it be great when we finally get our Harriet Tubman $20 bill, and then we can go spend our Tubmans in Black-owned businesses? I can't wait for that day. Right. I love that line from President Obama when he said, when he was, leaving office, he was like, go out there and make me some Tubmans. And I'm like, right.
And I say that to say, so, even though I included over 300 businesses, there were so many that I did not include. So I'm dedicating the page to the women's issue to highlight and list as many women-owned businesses as possible this month. So I'm telling everybody, I don't know all the businesses. If you have a women-owned business, email us at blackwestchester@gmail.com. If you don't have a women business, but you patronize women-owned businesses that you think need to be highlighted, email us at blackwestchester@gmail.com. I need the name, the address, the phone, website, social media, and that stuff. And I would like to list as many as I can. And we're doing this for free. And people are like, yo, you should charge people. So we did this for free because I believe that you have to put your money where your mouth is. I preach about recycling Black dollars. I preach about supporting Black businesses, and I want people to support my Black business. So being that I have a format like this, I wanted to list as many Black businesses as possible. So in one place where you can have it, and you can open it up, and there's a digital format. If you don't have, email me or DM me, and I'll send you the link. You can read the digital issue. I have plenty of copies here, Mount Vernon, if you want to pick some up. But where you can just be like, okay, I'm in New Rochelle, or, I need an attorney. Let me go see, some Black attorneys, a Black accountant, professional services, even if you want to try a new restaurant. Hey, I never heard of that place. Black doctors, we have so many things that, go on. Black car washes, we have so many things, services. So, I tried to list as many as possible.
That'd be great if you did a section on Black. I mean, there are some Black doctors that I know of in our community, but how many of you know of a Black dentist?
Right. I actually want to do a show with some Black doctors and Black dentists and stuff like that in the future. I have all these ideas, and it's just me, and I can never get them all done at the same time. But I have a million ideas though, and they all sound good though. But we did the first issue. We did the issue for free, but now we started something that hopefully is affordable for small businesses. So we're doing a 15-minute live interview on LinkedIn. And then the video will also be posted later on our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages, and of course archived on blackwestchester.com in the business section. And then you get a business card ad in that month's paper for an amount of $300. So If you are interested, we're going to start that sometime in April, but don't wait. This is, if you're interested, email us. I mean, it's not something we can continue always to do for free, but I put that first one out there and hopefully entice, and we'll all support our businesses. But then, I know a lot of people can't afford a full page ad or even a half page ad, but I tried to cram as much stuff in this. So, even though it's $300, that might be a lot for some people, you're going to get a lot of weight with it. You know what I'm saying? And, you got a video interview that's on LinkedIn that you can use and share, with future, people about what your business is about. So we're starting that up, and we have a couple of other ideas going into, going into our 8-year anniversary. So,
I have to give a shout out to you, AJ, for a second, because the importance of having a community news. And I don't know if any of you watched 60 Minutes last week, but one of the sections was on the decline of reporters and newspapers because they're being bought up by a particular investor, and then that investor ends up shutting them down, essentially, and reducing their staff. But when there is a community newspaper and an outlet magazine that thrives, that's the check and balance that our community needs, so that if there's fraud, if there's corruption, if there's misdeeds going on in our community, if there are elected officials that need to be held accountable or elevated, it's the community news outlet that serves that purpose. For our businesses too, to elevate our small businesses. How many people out there that might be listening started a business during COVID because their business, wasn't doing as well as they needed to do to keep them employed, And there's so many Black entrepreneurs out there that are living in our communities and working in our communities and have services that we would utilize. And so our community newspaper, our magazine, and our online news is the place to go to get all that, to get that information. And you named a couple of elected officials people that had run. I'm sorry, community members who have run for office. Some won, some didn't win, right? But they're inspired to win, and we hear about them through your page and through your community news, and it's a place where we can go to talk about our issues, the things that are most important to us. And I'm not saying they're not important to other people. I'm just saying that we need our, like Felicia started, her Facebook page for moms that are like her. The community news is really our resource to go to for issues that impact us.
And every other group of people, Italians, Chinese, Irish, Hispanics, the Lgbtqi, I hope I said that right, community, they all have a local, some kind of media. See, you watch MSNBC, CNN, or whatever, and even Channel 2 and Channel 3, Channel 7 and Channel 4. But sometimes it takes the local media to let people know what they just saw and how that applies to our life, our local life. Like, how does that affect us? Like, and sometimes you need breakdowns like that. And we're going to cover stories that nobody else is going to cover. And we're going to highlight people that no one else is going to highlight. And I take that role serious. The role of the African-American paper in history is traditionally, this is not something to play with. This is a labor of love for me. Let me just say that first off. This is really a labor of love, and it's like my ministry. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm not going to really get rich off of this. I used to write for The Source and Village Voice and some really big publications, and I could make a lot more money doing this. Or I could have came out with an entertainment-based publication and wrote about love and hip hop and all that other stuff, and it would have been a glossy publication. I could have sold for $5 on the newsstands, and I wouldn't have the problem with advertising or nothing right now. But to do this type of thing, you have to be committed to this, and you have to, because there's times when you're trying to unplug people from the matrix, and those are the very people attacking you. And you're like, I'm trying to help you. Because some elected official to put out a narrative and they ran with it, not knowing that elected official does not have their best interests at heart. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, so it's funny, so you just have to, but again, talking about my mother was that type of person who always did for her community. She always helped people. She lived in a senior building. It wasn't too long before she was an advocate for senior rights, helping all the older people with stuff they didn't know and the rights that they had, that some of them were being taken advantage of. And she was right there with them, going to the meetings with them, making sure they got their rights. And, she helped a lot of people. She worked with Westchester Residential Opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, she worked with them, and she helped a lot of people, keep their houses. Even when I was in Georgia, one of my friends was about to lose his house, and I put him on the phone with my mother. And my mother had a real talk. He said, that got to be your mother, because she talked to me like nobody. She gave it to me real, like nobody else was going to give it to me. And, some of the stuff was hurtful to hear, but he needed to hear that to get in gear, to realize what steps he could take and make some moves. And because of that, he's still in that. And this is like I've been here 8 years. So this got by about 10, 15 years ago. And he's still in that house. His family is still in that house. You know what I mean? So, she did so much for so many. And if she didn't know, she knew somebody who did. And she would help you find that person who could help you and connect you with. So I felt like when she passed, Damon approached me with doing this. And so, I'm working. I got this free tablet from Sprint from upgrading to the Samsung Galaxy 3 at the time. They give you the free tablet. So I have my free tablet, my mom's laptop, and I'm actually creating the website on my mom's bedside while I'm with her every day in the hospital. And she got to see some of what we were doing. She got to see some of the first stories. She has some suggestions, some concerns, of course, a whole lot of be careful. Do you know what you're doing? To be careful, because there's some people you can write about stuff that people don't want you to write about. I need you to be careful. So it was a lot of that, but she got to see it, and I felt like when she passed, she kind of passed me a baton.
Yes.
And now I'm running that race, my leg of that race right now, and that's my way of keeping her memory alive and her legacy alive. And at least, Lisa, you knew my mom. So, I mean, you know what I'm saying is true. You knew my mom. So, she just did so much for so many people. And, that's what keeps me going. That and my faith. I have to say that as well. My faith. There are plenty of months where I don't know how the newspaper is going to come out, and it comes out every month, and the rent gets paid every month, and it gets paid. I just do the work. I'm like, I'm being right. Like, I guess this is the type of stuff.
That's all of our story. How many of us, all of our stories, right?
Amen. Amen.
Think, maybe you shouldn't talk about this kind of stuff, but I'm just keeping it real with y'all. Like, there's been several months like, not sure. And there have been people who want to remain anonymous who have made donations. People come up to me sometimes and be like, I want to see you, continue to see you do what it is that you do. And they just, give you a little envelope. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have nothing to advertise, but I want to keep you going. So I think this pays tribute to my mom. And that's for that reason. That's what I'm doing. I have somebody in my room right now. Can I help you? Did you need something? Oh, okay. I got that. Yeah. Like, that's the one thing about working in the house these days. Like, you be having other conversations, and you can see me looking around, and you don't know what I'm looking at. So, but
AJ, you I don't want to let this moment pass for a minute, because I have two women I want to add to honor. But Tanisha Grant, and I don't. She's not in our community, but she's in our neighboring community in Brooklyn, and she is the founder of Parents Supporting Parents in New York City Incorporated, and she also is a moderator like myself of Moms United for Black Lives Matter New York City, and she really, there isn't an issue that impacts children and families in New York City that she is not out there on the front lines advocating for. COVID, computers, foster care, and the kids that were suffering in foster care system, our transgender young people who are really in need of services, housing, help, the issues surrounding law enforcement, targeting young people and violence, missing children. I mean, there's just, I think she eats, breathes, sleeps, thinks, who didn't I touch and who needs me? And so she really deserves flowers and a lot of praise for her tireless efforts. She's given out over 900 computers to young children.
What is her name?
Tanisha Grant. Tanisha Grant, and her organization is Parents Supporting Parents Incorporated, New York City Incorporated. But she's really a powerhouse in the city, she just gets donations from people, works with Hewlett Packard to get these computers. And I said, well, maybe we should get tablets because they're less expensive. She's like, no, they need full computers and printers and the service plan and everything in a backpack so they can put it in so that they have computers. Wow. Those of us in Westchester County, in our schools, our kids are getting tablets to utilize in the classroom. And where I live in Pelham, kindergarten through 12th grade have individual tablets, so that when COVID, if it ever comes back, they'll be able to continue their classes at home. I know it doesn't work as well for young people, but to have that resource available is critical in our community. And in New York City, there were so many kids that didn't have a computer. And if you can imagine trying, like my son is.
There were so many people in Westchester who didn't have.
Yeah, that's
just
true
right
too.
Here in Westchester.
All over, right? I mean, we don't even, I mean, we could go like, yes, you're right, right? And, or I didn't even think about it until COVID hit, right? Because, we live in our house, we have high-speed internet. My son has a computer, he has his laptop, he has a tablet. We have all kinds of computers and access to internet. I'm blessed to have married a double math PhD when I was married, so that and I work for a university, and so both of us work at universities. Even though we're divorced, we work at different universities. Our kids had every resource in the planet that they needed to make sure that they could achieve at, even though they were working remotely. So it didn't really hit me until I was talking to somebody and waiting in line in the grocery store to get into the store. And she was telling me that her kids she didn't have internet at home, no internet. And I was like,
that's the other thing I was going to say. There's so many people that don't have internet.
And I thought, well, what do you mean you don't have internet? She has it on her phone, right? But
those plans go very quickly if you're dependent on
the hotspot don't last forever.
The screen size is so small. My son is taking honors geometry right now. How do you do honors geometry on a phone? And so it just hit me, like, not everybody has access to the same services. And working with Tanisha too, that's when Moms United for Black Lives Matter, sort of came to the city and formed. She really helped me to see, like, our kids need computers, and maybe that's something we need to start here in Westchester. Is really getting the resources through Black Westchester to raise money and work with our partnerships in our communities to get computers and internet access to our families that don't have access to the internet. Those computers aren't for my kids. Those computers are for kids that really need them and don't have access to them.
I would absolutely definitely offer our services. If anything we can do to highlight it, to bring attention to it, to bring that up. I wanted to answer a question I forgot to answer earlier. Sue asked me, where is the list? Is it online? Sorry, I missed that info. Sue, if you go to the website, blackwestchester.com. Once you go to the website, the tabs at the top, the last one is newspaper, and you click on that, you will then see the Black to Business issue, and you can click on it, and you can actually read it. It's digital. You could actually read it. The pages turn and everything. If you're anywhere near Mount Vernon, I still have copies, and I know there are still copies, I think, in a few places in New Rochelle and a few places in Yonkers and White Plains and Greenburgh. There might still be some copies. But if I still
And if
have
you go to Mount Vernon, come on over here to Pelham, because there's some great businesses that are highlighted in that newspaper.
And in Pelham, I did the what's that theater that's on the corner that shows some of the movies? They did the
Pelham Picture House.
Yeah,
Pelham
I did that. I put it in there and the Pelham Library. So both of the libraries just started carrying the paper for us. And that's another thing. I'm working with the libraries. Mount Vernon Library was the first one to archive Black Westchester.
Great.
Tasha Young is working with Greenberg to try to make Greenberg. I think Dr. Bob worked with New Rochelle, and New Rochelle's going to do it, and he's about to approach Pelham. And the reason, I've gone through the archives. It is like a paper I found from the 1940s that most people don't even know existed. It's a Mount Vernon paper for the Fleetwood area. And I took pictures of it. Most people that lived in Fleetwood, I put it on their pages. They didn't even know this thing existed. But I say that to say, I won't be here forever, but as long as those buildings are standing, there'll be a historical record of Black Westchester. So I'm working with a lot of them to start archiving. And the director from Mount Vernon, he's going to he knows some people in the Schomburg Library in Harlem, and he's going to see if he can work on getting me archived there. So that's one of the next, I don't know, someone asked me what's the next big thing. I think it was a conversation before the show, actually. And that's one of the next things we're working on. So
I think that's amazing. If you start at the Pelham Picture House and you walk down towards the library, you'll hit a couple of our Black-owned businesses, especially one of my favorites, the bakery there.
Okay. Well, there was a boutique that's not there no more, right? INSPO. It was.
Oh, yeah. She closed during COVID.
I had did a big. Yeah, I had somebody wrote a big article on her, we had featured her, and then when I was doing the first stuff on the website right after we came out the shutdown, that's when I first started this Black the Business thing. So we would support our businesses, to help keep them open. And I started going through them, and they closed. I had listed them. They was like, no, that's closed.
There is another Black-owned business in that space, though.
Oh, is there? Is there?
Yeah, it's a high-end salon, and she does a lot of, facial care and hair care and all the things.
It's female. It's female. It's a woman-owned business. So
yes, right in that same space.
So please send me the information so
I will.
So I can highlight them in this month. You're gonna list
I
them
definitely
in this
will.
issue.
AJ, I would be remiss if I didn't highlight two more women from the Westchester Black Women Political Caucus who are doing great things in our community. And one is Donna Jackson from our Mount Vernon chapter, who I understand was the original co-host for today's show. She is the PR public relations guru for the caucus, and she was ranked number 5 on the Hoover Board leaderboard at the 11th annual Women of Board National Summit. That is very impressive. So I wanted to shout her out today, give her a shout out. And also the Honorable Simba Brandon from the Yonkers chapter, who was the first Black councilwoman in the city of Yonkers, who will be honored by the Yonkers City Council during their Women's History Month program at 5:30 on Tuesday, March the 22nd. Thank you.
Let me just say,
amazing women around
Donna
us.
Jackson is one of my potential guest co-hosts for this month. We haven't locked in a week for her, but she is definitely one of my guest co-hosts potential for the show. So we're trying to lock that in right now. Yeah.
Well, if we're uplifting women in Westchester,
I'm not sure if I'm having a Wi-Fi problem. I think there's a brief delay.
Oh. Can you hear me now? Yeah. Allison Lake.
Yes.
Okay. Allison Lake is with Westchester Children's Association. She's doing a fabulous job, and they're doing a survey, a countywide survey on internet access, because part of their advocacy is to uplift the communities that had been left behind and that were negatively impacted by COVID. So I don't know if everyone has seen the link, but they've been trying to push it out to as many places and spaces. to do a survey to find out exactly where in the county internet access is not really readily accessible for members of the community.
So critical.
Absolutely.
Okay, so one other thing, because AJ, you mentioned the LGBTQII community, and I think that is very important, especially with our young people. There is an assault that is going on. And although I don't know the specifics about how many members of our community are also identify as LGBTQII, I do know that mental health issues impact them in greater proportions than any other community. And therefore, the issues of the LGBTQII and particularly the transgender young people should be all of our issues. Because our young people are suffering. They may come from homes where this is still an issue that their families are struggling with. They may not be in their homes anymore. They may be in foster care. They, depending on where they live, getting the right type of education, even having the right and the dignity to be called by the pronoun that they want to be called by. It's, this is an all-out assault on the right that's happening. And while, again, it's happening to the broader community, it's the mental health impact that affects our community the hardest. And so every time you hear about an act of violence that occurs to a member of the transgender community, every time you hear an act of suicide that occurs within the transgender community, anytime you hear about a member of the transgender community not receiving the dignity, even if they're arrested or, in so many different circumstances. And I was reading recently about unknown Black women heroes, and the woman, Frances Thompson, came up, and she was a transgender advocate back in 1840, right? And so, and the issues, if you can imagine what must have plagued her, right? And I don't think conditions have gotten that for the transgender community, and in particularly our young people, however they identify.
Absolutely, because our youth really need the support. So many youth, whether you are in a community that is privileged, whether you're in a community that is disadvantaged, all of the youth during this pandemic have suffered. My son was a 2020 graduate from high school, and so many things were taken away, from particularly that year because of COVID. There were things that they were looking forward to in their senior year, that just poof, were gone. Graduation was virtual. Well, it wasn't virtual, it was a drive-through. It was there was no prom that year. He's a baseball guy. There was no baseball season that year. He's a robotics kid. And his robotics team was going to a national competition, and poof, gone.
Senior skip day was missed. Everything.
Yeah.
Even
so many things,
yearbook.
And then it transitioned, so the youth that you're talking about, and even the other youth, it transitioned even to the next year, where their first year of college experience was then remote, because some campuses weren't taking in students, they were doing remote. So you had, so many things that really, and I thank God for the relationship that I have with, my son, and talking with his friends also, and other parents, to just say, hey, we have to keep an eye on our kids. We have to support them. We have to kind of ease back sometimes on some of the things that we normally would be, saying, chop, chop, you got to get this done. Give them a little grace, because it has been tough, and they have wrestled,
It really
through a lot of
has
circumstances.
our young people. And could you imagine, who was it that mentioned that their grandmother had 13 children?
That was me, my grandmother.
Could you imagine, like, 13 kids in a COVID situation in a house?
Remote learning,
and trying to do remote learning for 13, young people. I mean, it's just, I knew a family of 5 that did not have internet, were not working, so they weren't going to be able to get, internet installed, and didn't have a computer. And so, thankfully in Pelham, they do give the access to computers, but then they have to have access to the Wi-Fi. So, and it was hard for them in a 1-bedroom apartment, for the kids to learn.
I know one of the things they were talking about in one of the cities, one of the conversations we had, sometimes they would list, like, the Board of Education or whatever they would say, these households have tablets. We provided tablets for these, but there's 5 kids in that, and you provided 1 tablet. Like, and so it's listed as a house that has it, but so everybody got to wait for somebody else to use it. That too. I always like to. I know I don't know everything, and I learned so much by doing these shows. So when I said LGBTQ, you put II. What is that? And I don't know. So now so I will know. What is the II? At the end.
I don't know. I just know that that's how you say
it. Okay. Look it up. I wanted to learn something new. And also, Sandy Barnaby wanted to uplift a few people, and I co-signed all of these. Colby Jenkins, who worked and started the annual celebration, Women Who Dare to Be Different. She just received word that she will manage the new Greenburgh Farmers Market. We all need to support the success of this market. Then she said, I would like to lift up the name Stephanie Swan and Renee Robinson of Greenburgh, who work for the safety of those living at the Greenburgh Housing Association. I've worked with both of them. And Michelle Brown, I definitely co-signed that. She said, I lift you and your work. Michelle Brown, so in Greenburgh, they put up, there's the Welcome to Greenburgh sign, right? And next to that, they got approved. They had a sign under it that said, all lives can't matter until Black lives matter. This was put up on a Thursday at the end of the day. Before dawn, the whole sign, the Greenburgh sign, the whole sign was ripped out of the ground, right? So not only didn't they fix it and replace it right away, thanks to Michelle, who literally kept saying, this is day 189. It was almost 200 days before they even removed the broken sticks that were sticking out of the ground, like just leaving it there for you to pass by and as a reminder of this hate. You know what I'm saying? Eventually, they did take it down. Eventually, they did put it back, and now they put the sign up separately or something like that. But 85 days short of a year. Like, it took that long for the sign to be replaced. Michelle Brown documented every other day. This is day 75, and it still has. This is day 77, and Paul Finder said it would be done by. This is day 122. Like, she's been a big advocate for the displacement of seniors and everything going on in Greenburgh Housing Authority. So I definitely want to give her flowers, and all of the women that Sandy mentioned, and Sandy Barnaby, I want to give her flowers for the work she does with the Anti-Racism Alliance. I think it's very important, and so she deserves her flowers too. So that's what today is. We're giving all the women.
Can I add someone to the list?
Wait up, Stephanie. Hey, we just gave you your flowers. I don't know if you heard. I see she just tuned in. So Stephanie Swan, we just gave you your flowers, celebrating you. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add a fellow Peekskillian, Joanne Francis from Youth Shelter Programs of Westchester. She's doing great work there and has been recognized. Joanne Francis, yes.
Joanne Francis is another one of my guest co-hosts that we're setting up. That's another one of my
awesome. You got a great lineup coming. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, so yes, she definitely the work she's done with the youth shelters in Westchester. Definitely. I didn't know they had an office out in Peekskill because I think don't they
No,
have an
no,
office?
she's from Peekskill. She
Oh,
lives in
she's from
Peekskill.
Peekskill because I
Yes.
think the office is somewhere here in Mount Vernon, the
I
Bronx.
think it's Mount Vernon, yes.
Right,
Yes,
right.
I
Okay,
think it's
so
Mount Vernon.
I did not know that you were in Peekskill.
I am in Peekskill. She's in Peekskill. There's
So
good
shout
people up north. There's good people up north.
So shout out to Peekskill. I don't often get there. Shout out to y'all. I've covered a lot of the races. Starting with Rainey.
Andre Rainey, mayor.
Andre Rainey was the youngest city council person, and then he became the youngest mayor. And then I think Vanessa, whatever, I can't put up her name. She ended up being she ended up being the youngest city council person.
Yeah.
And then he threw his support behind Vivian. Now Vivian's the first Black female. So
she just gave us an update before I hopped on here. I was on our chapter caucus meeting, and she's a member of our chapter, and she gave us an update on the state of the city and what's happening. And it's so awesome to have like just be able to reach out and touch our elected officials and have them be a part of community groups and to share on a public basis, but also in smaller groups that we can then carry and transfer the information, to our churches, to our other community groups.
And I shared she had a business. I don't know if it's currently open or it's on pause right now while she's but I still listen to it though because I've been listening to her from the beginning.
The tea room.
The tea room. I always
listen to. I know that.
Yes, but you know what happened? They had something happened and the roof caved in. And so the building had to be grazed. So she does plan to rebuild, but that happened during COVID. And so, I mean, we're still in COVID, you know what I mean? But during the heavier, times.
Right.
So yeah, currently, but I think though, if you go online, just to plug that, if you go online, you might be able to put in some orders. She might be able to work that out. She has a staff, and so she might be able to work that out.
So I always uplift that. And Cynthia Turnquest Jones has gone to a couple events there, and she's wrote articles about it that's been in the paper. So so we show your love. I don't always get to get the paper out there. I had someone coming to pick them up and dropping them off in Peekskill, but that didn't work out. It didn't last long. So they were dropping off 1 or 2 churches and at City Hall, but that didn't work out too long. So I haven't been able to get papers out there in a while. So some of the other areas I haven't been able to reach, like Port Chester and Ossining, and but
we got a note from Lisa that she had to try better Wi-Fi, so that's why her.
Yes, I see that, and I think we were having a delay at some point, and that's what I was trying to say. It might have been on my end, where okay, that was Lisa. Okay,
and to answer your question, I'm definitely not the authority on this, so I don't know for sure, but I believe the II stands for Two Spirits. So when you have someone,
this is the first time I ever heard anybody say II, and
I think that's what when you're referring
every
to.
Every time I get it down, there's another alphabet at the end of it, so now I got to learn again. So
and you know what, and you raise a good point, which is that we're not a monolith, right? I mean, I'm not a member of that community, but as Black people, we're not a monolith. But as for people within the LGBTQII community, they're not a monolith either, right? And so as people grow and learn, so does that community. And I'm just since moving to New York, I've just become more aware of some of the issues that plague that community, and been more heightened about the just the random sense of acts of violence that happen against people just trying to live their peaceful lives.
Right. Shout out to Yonkers Council Majority Leader, I believe it is, Tasha Diaz. She's tuned in. And also another first celebrate Lakeisha Collins Bellamy. Is that how you say it? She is the first female, I think first female and first African-American Yonkers Council president. elected this past election. So, like I said, I just want to celebrate and give everybody their flowers. I'm sure there are so many of you that I've missed, and collectively, I want to give you all your flowers and love. And anybody else y'all want to uplift in this next 15 minutes, feel free.
Absolutely. In Yonkers, there could be no Yonkers in the Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus without the founder of the Yonkers chapter, the one and only Cheryl Brannon, who is the founder and CEO of Sister to Sister International. She's a big sister to all of us in the Yonkers chapter.
And a big Black Westchester supporter.
Yes. Yeah. So Cheryl Brannon, we're giving you your flowers.
While you're there, shout out to Vinnie Bagwell, African American female sculptor.
Yes.
And I think, is there a Harriet Tubman thing, a sculpture that's traveling right now? I think that's her.
Mm-hmm.
And she did some other stuff. So Sojourner Truth.
Sojourner Truth.
Sojourner Truth one, and she's done a lot of stuff. Like, she's world renowned. This like, a lot of people don't know her, and her work is impeccable and very talented African American sister. So I want to give her flowers. I'm sure a lot of people see her work and don't even know her name, but she is very powerful. So shout her out.
How about a shout out to all our amazing Black women artists that live in our community and share their artwork, their passion, their pain, their joys with our community in all sorts of mediums. Our Black teachers, I know we talked about Felicia, but it starts, some of our, our youngest people are inspired by when they meet teachers and interact with teachers. I had my love of reading first inspired by my parents. And then when I got to school, at school age, I just opened up to a whole new world of books that I still read today and still enjoy. I collect children's literature because I had that love of reading instilled in me at a very early age. I also want to give a shout out for all of us who didn't go to college with a Black professor. There are many in our community that are teaching in our local colleges.
There's a new black dean at the Pace University.
That's right.
I think the first African American dean ever in the 50-year history of Pace University.
Absolutely. Horace Anderson. He was our host at the Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus Black History Month reception at Pace Law School in White Plains, and he was a marvelous host.
Isn't that amazing, though? Yeah. I mean, for a Black, I understand he's a man. For a Black young man going to law school, to see somebody that looks like him, ascending to this level of professionalism and of research and writing and scholarly viewpoints. It's just that is so inspiring and so amazing and important, for
I want to give a special shout out to all our sisters out there, whether they're the housewives, you might not have a company or organization or be an advocate or something, just a regular woman in the community that's just holding it down, just holding her community down, just to all the unknown unsung sheroes out there that we don't know their names and they don't do anything for publicity and they just do what they got to do, and whether it's on their block in their community or their PTA or those things that keep us going, but we don't even know, and they're supportive, and there's a lot of them that support Black Westchester. There's a lot of them that are behind me, keeping me pushed up, that y'all never get to see. So shout out to all the women out there for whatever it is you do, because there's a lot of y'all that do so much that nobody never know. And, I used to be a recording artist at one point. And at one point I used to do all the this was back in the day. So we didn't really we had a manager, but I would have to go behind him and do all the stuff. We didn't have a publicist. I didn't know what publicity was. I just wanted to get in the magazine so the girls could see us. I didn't know what radio promotion was. I just wanted to get on the radio so the girls could hear us. So I was doing all those things you don't get your name and the credit on the back of an album cover for. So you know what I'm saying? It didn't always look like what I was doing, but I was doing all those things. So for all those women who do the thing, you don't get your name in credits or your name in the
Behind the
headline,
scenes.
behind the scenes. I want to shout all of you, all of you.
And shout out to all the women who are crossing guards, who help
that's
our
what
children
yes.
every single day.
Every day.
Shout out to all the crossing guards out there.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's critical because there's some crazy drivers out there.
Oh, absolutely. So as we come to the close of the show, I want to and one at a time, I'll allow to give you all your last words. If you belong to any organization or something, you want to highlight that and how people can get in touch with you or follow you. I'm going to start with Samami and then go to Lisa and then Felicia.
OJ, I'm always grateful to come on your show. I thank you for partnering with the Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus. You went with us to Washington, D.C. for the march in the summertime, and you were always, very gracious, inviting us back on your show. The Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus has 5 chapters in Westchester County, and we are encouraging women who look like us to join our caucus because there's strength in numbers. And I'm so grateful to have the opportunity today to give these members their flowers today. Gia Clark from the Yonkers chapter, who is the daughter of one of the first Black business owners in Yonkers. Lisa Burton, who is our redistricting chair and who is the champion and the loudest voice and knowledgeable voice on redistricting because it's going to affect our lives for the next 10 years here in Westchester County. And Felicia Cummings, who has been a member of the Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus from her high school days with her mom. She's a former president of the Peekskill chapter. She has years of expertise as an elementary school teacher. And what I like best is what she's doing now. She and 4 other women are doing a program, and they are mothers who talk about their children with autism. To me, that is remarkable. I salute all of you today. Thank you for coming on the show.
Before you go, Lisa, Felicia, I would like to revisit and have you and maybe the women come on and talk about autism and how it's affecting our community. And I think we can do a show around that. So please keep in touch with me and let's make sure
that would be awesome.
Please make that
would be
happen.
Awesome. Absolutely.
Lisa, go ahead. And Lisa, I like to keep in touch with you because you might have some memories of my mom that keep me going sometimes. So I like to keep in touch with you so that you hear about my mom, hear some stuff about my mom. But go ahead.
Would love to. Okay, so I'm with the New Rochelle chapter, and we are always looking for new members, like-minded women who identify as Black. If you want to be part of our caucus, Jean Anderson is our president, and that's probably the easiest way. Or just go on the Westchester Black Women's Political Caucus website, and the president and be part of that. I'm also a member of Zonta of New Rochelle, and again, we empower women both locally and globally. And our president is Ellen Lewis. And if you are interested, we have a Facebook site, and you can connect with us through Facebook. Thank you, AJ, for this wonderful platform and this wonderful program, and of course, thank you, Saboni, for the honors as always.
And can you also, for me, reach out to Women of Zonta? I'm not sure who sent me and my sister the audio recording, but I just wanted to thank them as an organization. My mother talked a lot about them. She always, had a lot of love for them. So I just want to, from her son, just lift them up. Felicia.
Happy to.
Okay. Let me see. So Moms Navigating Autism can be found on Facebook, YouTube. We have YouTube and Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and we have the community. Our local community access channel airs our programs weekly. It depends on the dynamic of the women and what their schedules are. So. Actually, I didn't found the group, so I'm just that's transparency. I was asked to join the group with the other, at the time, 3 women, and then another woman joined afterward. And we just weekly talk. whatever issues are raised by families and groups out in the community, they will message us and let us know, or we come up with topics and just sit and have informal talk like we're talking now, and just discuss the things that are affecting our families and how we have navigated through. And if there's anything that we can do to help others, by giving tips and, and just let you know that you're not alone, in this journey. Because I just want to share something really, short. When I first found out my daughter's diagnosis, you go into parenthood with certain expectations. And as you're traveling along, you have a bump in the road and you don't know how to navigate that bump. And, what someone so graciously shared with me was, it was kind of like you get on a plane and you think you're going to Australia. And so you prepare and you pack for that climate and for that excursion. But then you're on the plane and all of a sudden they tell you, oh no, we're going to Alaska. And you have to then shift, and that is something that I think,
Wow.
in life, it's so important that you have to be able to shift. If you still keep in the mindset of, this is what my child has to be, must be, then you're providing a disservice to that child. You need to shift as the parent and be able to say, I have to support them where they are. I think that was Solange mentioned something like that. You have to support them where they are and bring them along. And you have to be creative as I don't know what, to just whatever it takes, So, I just encourage people to follow us on the social medias, put your questions up on Facebook for us, and, reach out. And if you have any questions, any of us would be happy to help. It's Teresa, Marianne, Kim, and Brenda. And, we come together just as ordinary, everyday women who are just solving these everyday problems that we experience. So thank you so much, for AJ, for your forum. Thank you, Samami, for, bringing me into this group. I am so just touched and honored to be a part of this. And, it's such an enlightening conversation to have, as we are elevating women, as we are elevating our communities, and, just moving forward, with hope, hope and a commitment. So I'm thankful to everyone here today for all that you're doing, and thank you for sharing yourselves with us today and with the communities that you work in.
Gia, did I say your name right? Gia?
Yes, you did. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, so the H is silent. Okay.
H is silent. Yes.
Right.
So I am, thank you so much for having me, AJ, Solange, and Shabomi, and these great ladies, and all of the amazing women that were mentioned today. Every single one of them, someone can connect with someone's name that was sent or that was said, that they can find a connection. I am with the Westchester Women's Political Black Caucus. So that's on social media. I'm with the Yonkers branch. If you wanted to reach out, you can reach out there. We can always use help and support, and we can always share information that might be able to be something that that can help you with. I'm also on the board of Sister to Sister International, which is Cheryl Brandon, which I'm so glad that she was mentioned. She's an amazing, amazing woman leader in our community. I love what I do. I want my community to do great. I'm actually, after listening to all these women, I want to share some information of what I'm doing as far as a bookkeeper and what I've done in my years of experience. So I'm going to be starting a financial literacy group, which I'm going to invite young people to. I want them to understand how money works. And that is so important. It's something that we're not all being taught in school. So I want to share that information, and I'm going to open a group that I think is going to be beneficial to our young people. So other than that, thank you so much for having me. And I feel very blessed and honored. And let's continue this conversation. Let's continue this conversation and have it regularly. And AJ, don't give up. Listen, my mother died when I was young, very, very young. And when I heard what you said in that poem, there was so much heart and love and grace in that poem. And the fact that you're carrying it forward today, thank you. Just thank you so much. That touched me. I can't even say it touched me. Thank you so, so, so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And please keep me updated on your organization. I just want to say why that's so important. So I didn't know what credit was until I didn't have it. Nobody told me. So I didn't know I needed this. I didn't know it was so once I realized it was important is when I was told I didn't have it. Like, you know what I'm saying? I had already messed it up. So like, so yeah, it's we need to educate. We definitely need financial literacy. Someone else said it. We definitely need civics. And if our schools are not going to teach it, then it's up to us to find ways to teach it at home or in organizations or in our churches or wherever, because these kids don't know what's going on and they become parents that don't know what's going on. You know what I'm saying? So, and then they parents who have children who can't teach them because they don't know what's going on. So it is very important for us to move forward as a people that we teach civics. It's very important. Solange, any last words?
Well, I just want to say thank you. I've met 4 amazing women tonight. My life is enriched. I'm educated. I'm smarter after this show because I've learned so much about what's happening around me in our communities. And, I feel as a relative newcomer to the area that I feel like, you paved the way for me to be able to come here and to survive and to thrive. AJ, your poem to your mother, really struck to my heart. I have a son, and I've told him I don't want a funeral, right? Just put me in the ground, let me go. I don't spend. I tell him I'll come back and haunt him if he spends a dime of what I leave him having a funeral service for me. So I want him to buy a house or something, right? So that my legacy can live on and that he can have something to his name as well. So I just hearing that from you though, it just as a mom, I just I loved it. I absolutely loved it, and I just I wish you. I hope your mother lives on in all of us who just heard your words to her. And I know that she lives on in you because you're such a beautiful person and you're just doing so many amazing things to continue her legacy in the community. And it speaks to it when people you don't even know tell you something about your mother. And we should all be so blessed to have one day where, that happens to us about our mothers, and that our children also hear something amazing about us after we've gone. So
I've actually had a couple of those. Like I had someone who found out who my mother was and basically told me my mother helped her save her house or something. And then I was talking to a politician. I was talking to someone in his office, and the person asked me, "Is my mother my mother?" And I'm like, "Yes." And then they went to go talk about how my mother influenced them to do something. We were talking about scheduling the politician to be on the show or try whatever, whatever's conversation. And we had ended up having a whole conversation about my mother. And it's somebody I've never met. And they something made them ask me, was that my mother? And
look at that. Even in her glory, wow. Your mother is still making it happen for you.
Absolutely.
I mean, may she rest in power and peace. And but she is still up above watching over you and deciding like this needs to happen. And I am going to invoke my grace on this person to speak my word. So that is a blessing. It is truly a blessing.
I thank you all for saying that. Y'all don't know it's hard. Like I said, it's July 11th will be 8 years. She died on 7/11 at 7:11 a.m. Yeah. So and oh wait, it gets better. We looked up her birth certificate. She was actually born 7:11 p.m. So I was like, that's my new number when I do try to play numbers. Like I'm gonna, cause I said it, I'm going to play numbers tomorrow. Like I'm gonna play, like for real. Yeah. So I'm gonna play that number tomorrow. So yeah, but she was like my and give my mother her flowers in my closing. You know, she was like I said, I just lost my dad. I just buried my dad in September, and I said at his funeral, you know, I lost my parents 7 years, 2 months, and 1 day apart. So yeah, now I'm a 56-year-old orphan. So yeah, yeah, I said during his funeral, you know, he was my first superhero. They both were like my first superheroes, like in their own right. Like, you know, like my dad, there was nobody stronger than my dad. So I was concerned. Forget Superman. Like, you know, my dad was the strongest. Like, you know, and my mom showed me, you know, and I want to say this, and I don't. Well, see, the great thing about doing this, I can go over a few minutes. I'm not in the studio. Nobody's coming on after me. So my mother, and I've said this to her in adult Bible study, Bible study class in St. Catherine in Rochelle. And she was in class. I said it with her next to me, so she's heard me say this too. My mother was my living example of faith. And let me explain what that means. So, you know, you're a kid, you hear about Moses and David and all of these people, Abraham, and it's the same thing you're hearing about George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, a bunch of white people I ain't never seen before. Like, you know, just I take your word that they did this and they believe this stuff, but my mother was going through a really hard time, and I realized, like, no matter what, even when things didn't go the way she thought, she was always on her knees. She always believed. It was very important, her faith. And it was like God showing me through her a living example of faith when I still wasn't, you know, I was, you know, wasn't all the way there just yet. You know what I'm saying? And that's what made me then, you know, give my life to Christ as an adult. You know what I'm saying? Because of my mother. God used her as a living example of faith. So that's what my mother was to me, you know, in addition to a whole bunch of other things. But I think that's important to say and share, but like I said this in class, and she was sitting right next to me the first time I said this. So she's heard this. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not saying this after she passed. Like, she heard this. A lot of the things I said, she heard. I knew, you know, I'm not one of the people that they'd be like, oh man, I hope she know I love her. I know she know I did. I knew she loved me because she told me, like, we spent so much time at the end together. And I would give anything to hear it physically out of her mouth again, don't get me wrong. But I don't have any regrets that I didn't tell her or that I didn't share. I have no regrets. And you know, I learned the whole thing about quality of life with her. Because, you know, I would want her to stay forever, but what kind of quality of life was she going to have, though, you know? And she would have been in pain. So I learned a whole lot about quality of life. And I am going to be doing a series on senior rights. And a lot of us, and Damon lost his mom. She went through the hospitals in the rehab and all of those type of places, too. Like, even when I want to do a show on this, even when you are there every day, something falls through the cracks. So for those who are not there, like I seen the treatment of some people to the point, like there was one lady that was making this noise. My mother was in Wahlberg, and like my mother told me to go get the nurse because it was, you know, like that lady had been, and I had to get the nurse. You know, how long you gonna let this lady yell? Like, you know what I'm saying? And not only she might need something, but she making people like my mom's uncomfortable. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they can't, you know, they're healing. But that was a lady who had nobody come in to check on her. You understand what I'm saying? Even with me being there, my mother was in, you know, two rehab nursing home, like DuPont, I think it was, in Rochelle, and which they messed up, and we won't go there now. And Wahlberg, and then, you know, she was in New Rochelle Hospital, and she was in Montefiore in the Bronx, and, you know, just in and out, you know, that whole time I was with her. And even being there every day, there were things that fell through the cracks that I felt like they wasn't handling. But I was there every day.
You can do a whole segment on My Mother Lives With Me, and she's lived
Right,
with
and
me
that's
for
what I
20
said.
years. But
Being a caregiver,
what it's like to be an adult and caring for your
a
parents.
caregiver. Right.
And going back to when you talk about senior rights, I'd love to talk more about estate planning and why it's
Absolutely.
important how you you word your estate. If you don't want to leave a will, the state and the federal government will write one for you. And so, and it may or may not be how you would have directed things. So it's so important.
I'm glad you reminded me of that. I definitely wanted to do that after the death of DMX. He did not have a will.
Right. And that's fine. I mean, people die
I'm saying
without wills all the time. But then the state comes in and there's a set way of how that happens.
There's so many children and children's mothers, and everybody feels like they should get whatever they should get. And there are people fighting for things, rights of stuff that music that didn't even come out yet, all kinds of stuff. It was ugly. Where, the importance of having, like, one of the things I'm putting it right, and I'm doing it now, is, one of my favorite artists, Donald Goines. He wrote a series of books, and when he died, he might not have left a lot of money, but he left all his kids the books, the rights to the books. At least 3 of them movies have been made from him. So I wanted to, any of my published and unpublished works, I wanted to will to my daughter, so whatever can be done, my 50%, whatever percent of the Black Westchester, whatever gets used to that. My rap days, again, I used to be a rap artist, whatever my image and whatever for that, me and my partner in my rap group, we talked about that. Our daughters are going to have our rights. So anybody wanting to use our image and everything, they're going to have to go through our daughters. I'm not leaving you $1 million, but I'm leaving you things that can make you some money, though, maybe. You know what I'm saying? So,
Well,
anyway.
You never know. You're playing 7-Eleven tomorrow, so you may be leaving them.
Hey.
But even if you're not leaving $1 million, your life is valuable, right?
Yeah.
And you have things that are treasures and of value to you. And so how that is navigated and managed is critical. And, you see it happen all the time, like sure. DMX is one, right? Yeah. But it doesn't have to happen that way. And I understand, the reluctance to want to put it down pen to paper because, you're talking about what happens after your life. But like I said, I've made it very clear to my son. I do not want him spending any of the money that I leave him or anything that he has. If he spends it on my funeral, I will come back and haunt him. And I mean that, but have it in writing so that he can understand, because people may say to him, why aren't you honoring your mother by having this? And, they can go $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 on a funeral. And I do not want that. I don't want my money spent that way. And so it's critical that I write it down so that he has it and he knows exactly what to do with it. Also my passwords and, where I've stashed all the dead bodies. No, I'm kidding.
So once again, I want to thank all of you. And I definitely want to, again, full transparency, my show got canceled yesterday. So, I mean, the guest, everything, I had no show. So this is very organic. I was talking to Solange, said, what we're going to talk about? I said, well, we have these women coming on, and then we could just go wherever the conversation goes. And that's what we did. And basically, I believe it was a great show, which was very important to me, because at this point, I want to make everything count. I do every show like it's the first show, because even though it's the 31st episode, there's somebody never seen this and watching it for the first time. I do it like it's the last show, because you never know, nobody's promised tomorrow. And if you just did something and you knew that was going to be your last one, you would have put something into it. So I try to do everyone like it's my last show. So I thank you, Solange, for stepping up to the plate and ride with me, and all of you women for coming on and the great stuff you shared. And hopefully this has been a blessing to someone. It will be, of course, it'll be on the Facebook page, but it'll be on blackwestchester.com later tonight. It's on the YouTube channel, and it can be shared, and hopefully people will watch this for more. Next week, guest co-host, we're bringing back Lorraine Lopez, and she will be interviewing Judge Ada Medina. She'll tell you all about her next week. But that's who. If you saw me looking doing I was trying to pull up the name because I wanted to make sure that I definitely said the name. So that's definitely the first hour. I'm not sure what the second hour is just yet. And then the week after, I believe Joanne from the youth shelter of Westchester, we're still putting together that show. We don't know what we're doing yet, but she's supposed to be the guest co-host in that. And even though Women's Month will be over, Donna Jackson will probably be the first week in April, and we'll still continue it, and we'll put together a show. So that's what we're doing. We're celebrating women of Westchester. We're giving you all your flowers while you are alive. I thought that it was very important for me to have as many women on the screen as possible, not just have like me and Damon interview you or me and Bob interview you. So every show has a special female guest co-host as well. Hey, I thank you for all that you do. And y'all know how to reach me if you need me. And please utilize me if you need to. If you want to write an editorial about a topic that you really feel needs to be up, write it and email it to me. I definitely get on the website, and if I can, I'll put it in the paper too, if I can, but definitely on the website. You feel we need to talk about a topic or something, please, something needs to be addressed, contact me. That's what this is for. If I'm not serving the community, then I'm not, we have an election coming up, so we're going to get really busy into the silly season and stuff. But it's important for me to do these shows. The title is People Before Politics, where I get to the people before the politics. We're going to have the politics. We're going to have a lot of that. We're going to go through all that in the next couple of months. But I wanted to get to people before the politics and get back into the community engagement. And that's what this was, hopefully. So thank you all. You could be doing anything else, but you decided to ride with me. And I greatly appreciate it. This is Black Westchester Presents, the People Before Politics radio show. We're on every Sunday, 6 to 8. Streaming live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and then archived on blackwestchester.com. I still have copies of the Black to Business issue if you need them, and they're online. And we're finishing up the Women's Her Story Month issue. You have the next couple of days if you still want to advertise. I have some advertising spots. Please take advantage of them. Reach out to us, blackwestchester@gmail.com. Until next week, peace.
22 million black victims of Americanism are waking up, and they're gaining a new political consciousness, becoming politically mature. And as they develop this political maturity, they're able to see the recent trends in these political elections. Any minority that has a block of votes that stick together is in a strategic position. Either way you go, that's who gets it. You're in a position to determine who go to the White House and who stay in the doghouse. You're the one who has that power. You and I have never seen democracy. All we've seen is hypocrisy. When we open our eyes today and look around America, we see America not through the eyes of someone who has enjoyed the fruits of Americanism. We see America through the eyes of someone who has been the victim of Americanism. We don't see any American dream. We've experienced only the American nightmare. We haven't benefited from America's democracy. We've only suffered from America's hypocrisy. And the generation that's coming up now can see it and are not afraid to say it.